Exposed Vegan Media Podcast. I am your host, Zsa-Zsa Porter, a wife, mom, triathlete, and vegan chef. On this channel, you'll experience my ongoing docuseries capturing my swim, bike, run, and nutrition journey featuring all the people I interact with along the way.
All right, episode 2 is here. Today's podcast is brought to you by Exposed Vegan Media, a podcast for all humans looking to develop and maintain a healthy lifestyle. I am your host, Zsa-Zsa Porter, and with every episode, I am excited to learn more about how I can provide this information to you. Before we get started on our topic, I want to introduce two of my favorite people. And I'm super thankful that they allowed me to train with them last weekend, and we're going to talk about it. But before we get into that, I'm going to push it over to my first guest. He is new to the station and the channel. I will hand it over to Ariel. And if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your why.
Okay, so hey everyone, again, Zsa-Zsa, thank you for having me on the podcast. Annette, good to see you. Much kiss, Puerto Rican pride. Zsa-Zsa, don't get in your feelings. But yeah, welcome. No, this is, I'm thankful and humble for the opportunity to be on this podcast, to talk about lessons and to work with the BGM, right? The mystical BGM. But no, so I'm Ariel, started triathlon in 2021. Um, which leads to my why. After I did 20 years in the military, in the special ops community, I missed what I had, which was that community, that esprit de corps, and that adrenaline, which drew me into cycling during the pandemic. And then once I did cycling, I felt like I needed more, and I wanted to apply other disciplines. So I met a group online called BTA, and I think that's where we all started at. And it's called Black Triathletes Association. And from there, I met a community, a network, representation, which augmented my why, which is my why is I cycle. I advocate for veterans, specifically dealing with invisible wounds such as post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, and suicide. So that's kind of my why, which leads to my passion. But again, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you this evening, and let's get it.
Yeah, let's go. Annette, thank you for returning back. But for our new listeners, if you could just introduce yourselves and tell them a little bit about your why.
Yes, good evening, Annette Malesio. My why is pretty much kind of like Ariel's. I'm still active duty Army, MP by trade, but right now I'm a special assignment to be IG, which is Inspector General. So my why is I had, PTSD from a deployment that I dealt with, had some losses, very, very difficult to deal with, had some survivor skill, just a whole bunch of stuff, kind of lost my way. Like I said in the last podcast, I was kind of dealing with like some suicide stuff, and I'm not scared to, or like afraid to talk about it anymore. It's like it used to be very like you just didn't talk about it in the military, and so we've gotten away from that. We've gotten away from you don't talk about it anymore. Now it's important for senior leaders, for people to speak up and say like, hey, I've also dealt with it, and open up forums so that people don't lose their way, because I have had soldiers that had committed suicide, and it doesn't feel good. So to lose loved ones, when you're here with your family and things, and people just don't understand why it's so difficult for people when they come back from deployments to get back to life. And so it's difficult. We go through it. It's good to find a good community of people. I found my reasoning and my why in the triathlon community, because kind of like how Ariel said, it kind of makes you feel still like you're dealing with military, because it's like you kind of still have that craziness like in the civilian sector that you don't really feel like you do. And so that's my why. I do this for my brothers and sisters that didn't make it, those that are still here fighting with invisible wounds, those that can't because of for whatever other reasons. That's my why.
Thank you both for sharing. And again, I'm so grateful that you're here with me and that you're sharing with our listeners. So now that we got into the introduction and you've heard about our guests, let's get into it, what we got into last weekend. First, I'm going to start with Ariel. Ariel, I want you to share a little bit about, you did a post a couple of weeks ago and you invited social media to join you on a ride. What was your thought process behind that? And then what did you do to prepare for the ride?
So, um, the biggest thing, I have a mindset of get up and get out and do something, right? When you wake up, you have to move, right? You fight in the war, as David Goggins say, you fight the war in the morning. When I woke up that morning, I said to myself, you have to train in the grounds that you will race. So you got to prepare yourself, not only physically, but mentally, but and also when you are trying to prepare yourself for a race, you want to bring others with you. So I got this crazy idea that said, hey, look, I'm going to go to Pilot Mountain. See, in North Carolina, they call that the Three Humps or Pilot Mountain. It's like the boogeyman, right? So when you say, hey, I'm going to Pilot Mountain, I'm going to climb, you got Pilot Mountain, you got Sugarloaf, and then you got Hanging Rock. That's about 2 hours away. Then you got the Asheville and Boone area, right? So when people say you're going to climb in North Carolina and you say, hey, I'm going to go to Pilot Mountain, it's like everybody runs away from that, right? Because it's like climbing and going in difficult courses. Sometimes it's our mind that's telling us that we can't do it, but our body can. So I created a post and I said, hey, listen, I invite, so when you invite someone to out there, you have to mentally prepare yourself that not every athlete, not every cyclist or not triathlete are at the same level. So you have to prepare yourself to say, hey, look, when I go here, it's not about me, but it's about bringing the love and the course to those so they can understand why I go there.
I don't feel like you put all of that in that post. And maybe if you did, Annette and I wouldn't have said, I'm in so quick. But then again, neither one of us read a lot when we
Right.
say, we
Facts,
just,
facts.
oh, we're going to ride. And it's early in the season and we're preparing for things. I'm
He
in.
didn't say
I don't
nothing
think,
about no three
right.
mountains.
I don't
Well, I
remember.
ain't gonna tell everything. I ain't gonna tell you everything now. I ain't gonna say everything now.
So, but thank you for sharing that now, and it all makes sense. Can you share a little bit about the route and the elevation
Yes.
of the two areas you
So
went to?
the area that we're talking about is Pilot Mountain. It's probably one of the highest. So there's some other areas in Mount Airy. So when you want to climb in North Carolina, you have Morrow Mountain, which is in the Charlotte area, right? Then you
Hmm.
have Pilot Mountain. Uh, it is Pilot Mountain is total. The route that we did was about 52 miles and about 5,500, not 55,000, but 55. It felt like 55,000, but 5,500 a feet of climbing. But it was not a. It was a gradual incline, and it's meant for you to work on certain techniques of climbing, cadence, power. Um, but Pilot Mountain, the first one that we did, I kind of selected that. So I went back and forth on do we do Pilot Mountain at the beginning or do we do it at the end? Right. And I'm glad we did it at the beginning
Oh yeah.
because,
Oh
right.
yeah,
Because I think what it did was I wanted to work on confidence. So, we in the military, they teach us confidence. They taught us, they teach us this method of crawl, walk, run, and a net. And I'm sure because we also got to acknowledge that Zsa-Zsa also is serving. She's a military spouse. So we got to
Yep.
say she's serving too. So thank you for your service. So
thanks.
we're taught to crawl, walk, run. So in my mind was if I can get them through Pilot Mountain as a confidence booster, and then the 52 miles remaining, they can kind of learn. Because I think you learn everything about climbing just on Pilot Mountain. I don't know. What do you think?
Facts.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah,
he did.
yeah.
He did.
We're gonna get into what I learned. I know you didn't
Okay,
have a
okay.
chance to look
Right,
at the
right, right, right.
outline. We're
Right.
gonna get into what we learned.
Right. But Pilot
Hmm.
Mountain for me was the ability to work on hands on. Okay, here is how I clip in case I got to clip out. Here's how I brake. Here's how I hold my bike when I'm traversing down in case of winds. Here's I change gears and braking. So I think we got a crash course, probably not the most preferred technique, but it was. That's why I chose Pilot Mountain at the beginning.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what were some of the techniques that you wanted to make sure that we knew before we got started? Because I was happy that you wanted to at least get started with, like, hey, before we get started, let's talk about a couple of things. And you made us go around the parking lot. Like,
Yep.
what's the thought process behind that?
So what when the biggest thing when you're going into a climbing course, you want to talk about ascending and descending, right? But really is how do I brake and how do I control my brake? How am I control my bike? So we have these front brakes and we have these rear brakes, but how do we use them? And then how do we use our body position so we can slow the bike down but still remain control? And I just learned that in my last, when I went preparing for Nice, it was like a crash course. I came to the bike store and there was a pro here that's working at Inside Out Sports. And I was like, hey, look, man, I'm going down Nice. Its elevation is 8,000 feet of climbing. How do I brake? And he kind of explained the sitting back on the seat, taking wide turns. If you take a wide turn, you're adding more mileage versus going closer to the road. So my mind was, okay, I want to make this enjoyable. Yes, it's gonna suck. Yes, the climbing is not fun. But at the end of the day, I wanted to at least you guys have some tools in your kit bag to be able to pull them out in case I got to break the glass seal.
Thank you. Annette, what did you do to prepare for the ride?
Excuse me. Honestly, to prepare for the ride, I didn't do anything. It was a pretty crazy week. I was TDY. I came home on Thursday. I like unpacked, washed my stuff, and like packed Friday morning to get on the road. So I was just like, whatever.
Okay. So did you do any preparation as far as clothing, as far as nutrition? Was there anything that you did? And then if you didn't do it, do you wish that you did?
Yeah, I actually forgot my nutrition, and I had 4 cyst gels is all I had on the course. I felt fine on the course, but then later that day and the next morning, I had a headache, which I know I obviously didn't fuel properly, and but I look cute. I made sure I had a cute outfit, so that I made sure I packed my cute kit so we can match. But I forgot my nutrition, so yeah.
I'm not mad at you thinking about looking cute because some people that's what they're thinking about. And because you thought about matching, I had sleeves because I didn't pack my sleeves.
Uh-huh.
I was cleaning out my car and I didn't put my box of stuff back in, which is why, Ariel, I forgot my shoes with the right pedals on them. So with the right cleats on them. So it's good that you were thinking about what you needed to wear. But Ariel, what were you going to say?
I think we all plan by saying, hey, let's attack this course with our road bikes. And I think one of the things that we had agreed upon, because a lot of triathletes want to say, hey, look, I want to train on the bike that I'm going to use.
Yeah.
Yes, that's good. Okay, I'm not telling you not to do it. But when you're tackling how to climb, I think for us, it was a wise decision or pre-plan to bring a road bike because it gave us the ability to climb and manage the bike, especially when you're descending and a tri bike is heavier in the front.
Yeah.
I think that part of saying, hey, let's go with our road bikes, that helped out. And I think that's what triathletes need to realize, that you should have a road bike and a tri bike because it allows you to alternate and get different goals that you're trying to do in cycling by having two different bikes. Some folks are just focused on try. But if you look at Blumenfeld, you look at Lionel, you look at all these pros, you look at Sarah True, they all do road biking and tri biking, right? Because it works different muscles and it prepares you for different courses.
Yeah. And so what I did to prepare, I tried to prepare because I had a lot going on with life. I had to make sure that someone was home to dog sit, grandma sit, kids sit, so that I could go out for the entire day. But I also was trying to get my road bike, a new road bike, prepared because I've been racing with my tri bike. I did half of the preparation as much as I could because in my mind I was like, okay, I have to practice gratitude. I have someone that's driving far away. to ride with me. And then I had no idea where Ariel was coming from, because one minute he's on social media in kids, and the next minute he could be anywhere. But either way, I needed to have gratitude, and I needed to show up with as much as I could. So for me, what I did to prepare was get my nutrition together. And in case I ticked Ariel off, I wanted to bring him treats. So that was my plan. People
It
like John
works.
Gerst know that if I mess up and I mess up the ride or I do something, always bring food. So that was my plan, because I knew I was going to forget something, and it was going to be my first time, which I do not suggest to go out climbing with your new road bike. But I was like, you know what? I don't know when I'm going to have this opportunity again. I really want to test Pilot Mountain. And I didn't know when Ariel was going to have the opportunity again to assist me, knowing what my schedule is for the year. So that's what I did to prepare: nutrition, treats, and get my road bike as prepared as I could. So let's now get into the first climb. Annette, I'm going to go to you first. How did you feel when we were and think about it, we got a training from Ariel, which I did appreciate him taking the time to go, because that was a little bit of a surprise. So that I was happy about that. And then he prepared us, and he also, I'll just give the caveat, explained to us what we were going to do for the day, even though I don't think you and I really believed that's what the intent was. He said, no, we're building. I'm not out here to train. I want to make sure you guys are good. He gave us that speech. And over time, we learned he was truly authentic with what he said. But as we started, how did you feel?
So going into the first climb, I was getting overwhelmed, and I was just like, just take it in chunks. So it was like, holy crap, like this is going to be a lot. And mentally, cause like I always tell myself, oh, you're not a good climber. Like, and so like I had to fight those thoughts, because like right away I'm like, I'm not going to be able to make it. Like, you're not going to be able to make the whole thing. And, as it started to get harder and harder, I was just like, maybe you should unclip, or like unclip one foot just in case. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that until you make that, like that one turn where you kind of like, it's super steep. And I was like, oh my gosh, I definitely am going to have to unclip. And I'm like, no, kind of like talking to myself. I can't say it on here, like all the bad words, like, don't, you're a bad bee. Like, don't get off your bike, like, and then I was like, if I fall, just don't unclip, and it's like mental. It is, when I got to the top, Ariel was talking about like, you see, it's mental, because honestly, your body could do it as long as you like tell yourself you could do it and you just push through. Because I really, really did want to unclip like so many times, and I was like, don't unclip, just a little bit more, if you're tired when you get to the next, whatever, 5 seconds, then, and I ended up not having to unclip. I really wanted to, and I was just thinking like, if I unclip, I probably will fall over, because I was, one time my Garmin paused, and I'm like, like I'm climbing like super slow, but I'm still climbing, like how dare you disrespect me. But yeah, I didn't unclip. It was mentally very, very tough. But I feel like we did that, like we could pretty much do anything if we did that, like climb, because the other one wasn't as hard. That was a test of mental like endurance for sure.
Yeah, for me, I unclipped several times. There was a couple of things I was trying to get situated with my bike, and then I didn't bring the right shoe. I mistakenly messed that up. And so I was feeling like it wasn't loose, but it was just mental for me. And then while we were climbing, for those who have never been there, there's these little winds of turns. And so in my head, I was like, first, for one, even though Ariel said that he was there for us, I was like, I have to hurry up, because he said if he doesn't see me in 15 minutes, he's going to come back looking for me. So if I take too long, then he has to come down and go all the way back up, and that sucks, and he's going to be pissed. So let me just keep going. And again, this is me talking to myself. This has nothing to do with anything he said. This is me having conversations, trying to keep going. And I saw cars keep going, and I'm like, wow, when does this end?
Exactly.
Like, no, the car is gonna, that red car that's right here in front of me, it's still going up, which means I still have to go up. And I'm like, all right, let me just keep pedaling, and I wasn't fit for it yet, which I do have a fit scheduled for this bike. So I was uncomfortable as well, but I was like, okay, let me hurry up, because in my mind, I didn't want him to come back down and be like, what are you doing? And why are you here crying? So just keep moving. And once I started to see things and people and I could hear things, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm almost at the top. And I had got off, I think I got off maybe 3 times. Each one was a turn, and I felt like I was going to fall. And then this one last time, I was like, oh, let me just go. And then I finally saw both of them on their way down, but they weren't too far down. And so I was like, oh, it must not be, maybe it's not that far. So it was truly mental. It was me talking to myself, me trying to convince myself why I was there, me telling myself, well, I'm not, at no point was I going to quit, but I definitely was doubting, like, can I really make it up to the top, and not knowing what the top looked like is something what I was going through for that entire, and it was 2 miles, but it was 2 long miles.
Longest 2 miles in my life. I'm like, people be like the PT test. Well, this is the OPT, but we still do 2 miles. But 2 miles seems like forever. Like, you ain't climbed 2 miles. Like,
2 miles.
Longest 2 miles ever.
But I gotta give it to you. So you brought up some highlight points, like you're on a road bike that you haven't gotten fitted. You're still working that, and you still did it. So you got to give yourself grace in this sport. You gotta, I look at it as when when stuff goes bad, you learn from it. I bet you that road bike, the next time I see it, I bet you it will be set, because you got to go through these things. You got to realize, oh, I need a fit. Oh, I need, because when I first started, I said, hey, what type of cycling shoes? I learned, there were some things that I called the guys from Bonk, again, we call cycling shoes, but I use a stiffer shoe versus a tri shoe, and all that. But I think that both of you guys did amazing, even though we had some challenges, one through mental or mechanical or bike. You got to give yourself some grace, because had you not gone through it, you don't know what to fix. And that's, so that's kind of what happened to me at Nice when I'm climbing, and I had 3 mechanicals, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get a chain catcher. I'm going to add this to the bike, so you got to go through these moments of agony in order to say, all right, that won't happen to me again.
Oh, it's very true. And it was moments of agony. And when I got home, I did make several adjustments. So I think you know that my bike computer wasn't in the front because I was missing a piece. Oh, it's on there now. So I don't have that issue
He was like,
anymore.
she don't have her bike computer on the thing, right? It's in her back pocket. I was like, yeah, she got it in her pocket.
It was a piece that was missing because I just put my hydration in the front, and I thought it was attached to it. So when I went to put my bike computer on, I was like, this is gonna be a day. This is gonna be one heck of a day, and we're gonna get through this. But we made it to the top, and there was a nice, beautiful spot to take pictures, and then we started to descend down. Annette, how did that feel for you?
So I was very thankful that Ariel taught us that descending thing, how to scooch back like the cat, and pump your brakes. I probably would have melted my brakes because I was so scared. I mean, I was still scared doing it, but the little tricks that he taught us really helped. And it just took Pilot Mountain to get it down. And then the next time that we were descending at the other place, I was like automatic, like muscle memory just did it. I'm like, check you out, girl. Like, you know what you're doing, so it just clicked right away. And that's, that really helped, even though it was still very technical and very, very scary. I was able to pump my brakes and probably not bleed them all the way, and not have brakes for the rest of the ride because I would have probably melted them. So I was very thankful for that, but it was very, very sketchy going down, very scary. I already don't like climbing and the descending. Like, that makes it even worse. I was like, I think I'd rather climb than keep going down. Like, all this technical stuff, it's really scary. So, but I mean, we did it.
And on my way down, I was thinking, did we go this far up? Where is, I was like, going up, it's where is the end, going down was where is the end. But I'm thankful as well that you mentioned the rounding your back and pumping the brakes. I'd never heard that before. And it made so much sense going down. and you told us to go first, and you went past me. And I can't win.
Well, I just want to make sure you guys are safe. I was like, I'll get hit by a vehicle before you guys. I'm not saying that. Um, but what about the body position? Like using your knees, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
you know what
we
I mean?
mentioned
Like your
that.
core, stabilizing the bike in case for winds, because there was some winds there.
There
I think
was
there
a
was,
lot.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I seen you guys doing that a lot too, like when you were doing a soft pedal or controlling the bike with your legs. So yeah, that was kind of and that's kind of what I did. So I would rotate between you guys just to kind of see um, how were you controlling the bike or managing it.
I'm gonna tell you how I really felt about you when we get to that second to the last climb. When you, I'm gonna tell you about that, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, but yes, I forgot about you telling us to keep our legs together and to control, pump the brakes, and that really did help me. Even though it was still scary, but it was still something that I was just like, I did it, and I was very excited. And then you said, "All right, now we got 52 miles more to go." And I was like, you know what? I could have been done with this, but whatever, man. Just tell us where we're going. So we tell us a little bit about the terrain and the route and where we went to after that, Ariel.
So from Pilot Mountain, we then now do well, it's called mountain hopping. Then the next mountain is Sugarloaf, and then the third one is Hanging Rock. So I decided to not do Sugarloaf just because there's a theory of a dog, and the terrain is sketchy. When I mean sketchy is gravel, and you have to be smart. But the next thing that I wanted to do was focus on rolling terrain. So now that we got climbing, ascending, and descending, now we got to work on how do we, um, traverse through 50 miles of terrain that's up and down, right? And then how do we traverse when you feel like it's flat, and then all of a sudden you're going up a hill to Hanging Rock. So it's not only a physical thing, but it's a mental thing, because you gotta now put everything together, and at any moment you're gonna see a hill, you're gonna descend, and then you got traffic. So one of the things that you don't have on in a race, you have control, you have a course set up for you. When you're doing these climbs, it's traffic, right? So you got to be a smart cyclist. So we kind of use that course. I wanted to kind of now and work on traversing, rolling hills, and then also Hanging Rock.
Yeah. How did you feel, Annette, during this part of the ride with the
I kept
rolling?
asking, like, he's like, we have X amount from X amount of hills. And I'm like, is this a hill? And he's just like, he would just give like an evil grin. I'm like, this isn't considered a hill? Which ones are the hills? It was like, because pretty much like the whole thing seemed like it was hilly. And we're still doing hills. And he's like, we still have three hills left. And I'm like, we just did about 5. Did that not count? Like, what the hell? So I felt like the rolling was okay. Until like we got to the store stop, and then like heading back, I was kind of just like, okay, like let's just get this over with. Like I was all like, oh my, and then traffic started to pick up on the second half. So the good part, when we left early, it was not that much traffic, but on the second half and going into the next mountain, the traffic picked up. So I was kind of nervous with the traffic and stuff. But yeah, it was an experience.
I didn't feel too bad. My only thing was because I didn't have my front cage set up, I wasn't accessing my nutrition as much, but I did go through 2 bottles. So I was happy about that. I use F2C nutrition. And so the thing that I did do to prepare for the ride, I did look at how far we were going. Like, if anything, I got nutrition down.
Yeah, you do.
So I'm always looking at where we're going,
Mm-hmm.
what is the terrain, so that I know how many calories to bring for myself. Because in my mind, I'm always like, I'm gonna get dropped. So the worst thing about somebody who gets dropped is them passing out. So you're gonna be slow or you're gonna be passed out. I'd rather be the person who's like, at least I'm in good spirits. So whenever you guys would see me, like, are you good? Yeah, I'm good. I'm drinking. I'm not hot. I'm not cramping or nothing because I at least planned my nutrition. If there's anything I felt like I could control was that. And then when we stopped at the store, I made these like protein brownies, which I gave to Ariel later. So I had enough energy to get up the mountain. I didn't love it, but I didn't feel like I was depleted. So for me, the learning throughout the ride was, okay, my nutrition worked. I may have needed to do a bunch of things for my bike, but I never got any cramping. I didn't feel like I was fatigued. Only fatigue that came is with me mentally. And then I realized that it was mental when Ariel said the second to the last hill, he was going to ride behind me. And then I was just, I didn't say any curse words at him the entire time. But that one time he said, you go in front of me. And I looked at him and was like, why? And so I said, okay, I had to talk to myself. Zsa-Zsa, you can't slow down. You have to keep your cadence because now he's behind you. He's no longer in front of you and he can't see that you weren't pedaling the way you were supposed to be doing this whole time. And he's behind me. Cars are coming. I want him to be safe. So I'll have to keep going. Then we were 3 ways up and I'm like, dude, you could have been doing this the whole time. This was so mental for you. You're much stronger than you're remembering. So you really need to work on this. And we got up to the top and then he went around me. He's like, good job. I was like,
But that was my purpose. So, I train individually, and I train like today I did a group ride, so I'm a ride leader, so I ride a Peloton. So it changes your mindset when people are behind you and you're leading. So now it holds you accountable on the bike to produce. So my goal was, I'm going to get behind you and I'm going to see how you're rotating through the gears. Are you, changing the gears before you hit the climb? Are you having a good rotation with your ankle to your leg? But I also wanted you to say, look, I got somebody that's behind me and they're depending on me to climb up this hill. So you gotta simulate sometimes and put people in a mindset, because that's kind of what I did for 20 years in the military. I trained and I put people in scenarios to see how they react to certain things. So now I'm just applying what I learned from the military to applying it now. But that's all I wanted to do. And when you did that, you was hitting that top. I was like, okay, we're good. We're good. We're gonna get through this.
I want to be like, I'm a civilian.
No, but I wanted you to go. Like, if I wouldn't have done that, you wouldn't. I don't want. So my goal for the last
it worked.
hill,
It worked clearly.
Yeah,
because I was thinking like, if I can't get off because then we're both going to get in an accident. So now I got to freaking climb this daggone hill. So I was like, all right. I thought about KD because she says to breathe and a way to sit up. So I was thinking about what you were saying. And then when I was 3/4 of the way, I was like, that was so mental because I'm not even tired. Like, what in the heck? I got to do better. So, I mean, I'm definitely grateful. At the time, I was not. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I called you a couple of choice words, but I didn't say them out loud. But then once we were 3/4 and we were all the way up, and I was like, all right, I see what you did there, Ariel. Okay, yep. I get it. All right, so we were at the end. And we were on our way back, and you had mentioned, like, before we got to that last one, which was my bad, which I think is funny now. It probably wasn't funny to everybody then. You said, all right, we're good. Everybody just follow their GPS and let's go. And I was like, oh, okay. So I can just ride my own pace and we'll be fine. I'll follow my GPS. I'm looking at the GPS, the way it says turn. And we get to a certain point and it says turn, but I didn't see Ariel. Now, if I was really thinking and if it wasn't hot and I was in my right mind and wasn't, a little fatigued, I wouldn't have turned because he has met me at every single turn. So why would I turn and he's not there? But my GPS said, and it was in my back pocket, I heard it say, dit, 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 dit. So
I'm a call. When the referees Annette throw the BS flag, the red flag, I'm gonna throw that.
No, it
because
said turn. So I turned and then it told me to go there and it said 8 miles. So I was like, oh, I guess I'll just, and I always get dropped. So it was fine. So in my mind, I was like, we'll just meet because he said meet each other there. Until my watch, I see Annette calling and I was like, oh, shoot. I don't think I was supposed
Leslie,
to
we
turn.
usually hear our side.
And then I get off the side of the road and I see the ambulance and I was like, oh.
Ariel, do you remember?
Take me-
Ariel was like, I hope
Take
that's
me
not
with
for her.
you.
I'm like,
Take
don't
me
say
with
that. Oh my
yes, you should have thought about what was going through our head. Go ahead, Annette. What was going through your head at the
so
stop
we heard
sign?
that ambulance, and then Ariel was like, I hope that's not for her. I'm like, shut up, don't say that, right? So we're starting to freak out because he's like, she wasn't like too, she should have been here by now, because we had been kind of waiting a minute. And I'm like, and then I was like, I don't think there was any turns. I was like, was there any turns? And he was like, I don't think there was any turns either. So we're like, okay. So then he's like, I'm gonna go back for her. And I was like, okay, let me try, to call, to like, send her a message, whatever. I'm calling, I'm sending messages, she's not answering, and I'm like, I call him back. I'm like, something probably got to be wrong. He done went far out. He's like, look, I don't see her. Then finally, you call me back. And she's like,
hey, I was writing.
Yeah, she's like, hi, I'm talking to the super nice white man. He's gonna put me in his car and take me to you. I was like, wait, what?
So she doesn't. So wait, we gotta pause. So I'm on the side of the road, and a man sees me, and he says, "Hey, are you talking to a woman who's right up the block?" And I said, "Is she wearing pink?" No, mind you, she was not wearing pink, but she's always wearing pink, so I just assumed. And he said, I thought maybe she was talking to someone, and he explained he is a fireman. He said he sees people on, he's like, I don't think you're supposed to be on this road, because if you want to get hit, this is the road to be on. And I said, well, my guardian told me to make a turn, but
Lord
I haven't seen them, so I'm thinking maybe I'm on the wrong road. So Annette said, so I said, hey, so this really nice man is talking to me, and he said that he would bring me up. Okay, get it. And I just like, okay. And I click. And the first thing I'm worried about, which is the wrong thing, let me just caveat, this is nothing that I tell my children to do. I'm concerned about my bike, because he's going to put it in the pickup truck. It's not insured yet. I just got it. It's not fitted. I'm very much in love with this new bike. It's a Madone. I'll show you all later. And we're trying to get it situated, and I said it's not going to fall. Then I get in the car, he's telling me about the area, and then when I get out, and I said, did I just get in a stranger's?
Tell him your texts. What did I text you?
And then I looked at the phone afterwards, and she said, do not get in his car without taking a picture of his license plate. I was like, oh.
Send me a picture of his plate before you get in. Do not get in until you send me a picture of his plate.
And because of where we were, I wasn't getting access. I didn't see no social media, nothing.
Meanwhile, I'm climbing 3 miles, rolling mountains, looking for Zsa, yelling for her, hello, Zsa. I'm out here riding the course that we had just did. I think that was one of the hardest rollings. And she's good. She's coming back with a guy. Just come on back. Okay, no problem. I'm on my way. I'll be there in a minute. Don't worry. I'll be there in a minute. I get back, and then, we get back. I'm gonna say, I get back. She goes, I did what you told me. I was looking at my garment. I'm like, in your back pocket? Come on, let's be real. That's why I'm gonna throw the flag from the get-go. How you gonna be like this?
No, right? Because it goes teet when it's time to turn.
Oh man!
So whenever I pulled it out, and I was like, oh, but yeah. So that was but the one thing that was wonderful is I see Ariel coming down. I was like, oh man, I'm about to get it. This is when it's gonna come out. He's been nice this whole time, and he's smiling. He's like, we're training, we're building, and I was like, oh. Huh. I was like, well, it's the beginning of the year. I'm sure I'll meet the Ariel that other people know later.
Well, see, I got cautioned by the other BGM partner who asked me to be the most patient person that I can be, right? So what I didn't say at the beginning, she was like, my BGM girl's going to show up and they're going to show out. So don't be doubting them, right? She already proved me wrong with Pam when Pam was doing my kayak, and she was like, don't be doubting this BGM power. We thoroughbreds. So I was like, okay. So every time when my thoughts was like, man, it's going to be a long day, I thought about my little buddy was like, be patient with them, okay? You're gonna do that for me. And I was like, we're training, we building, let's get it today. That's it. Because you only get like think about it, that area is beautiful. As the rough as the terrain is, like when do you get a chance to say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna climb, right? I mean, I go there at least once a week. I hate it, but it's good to build that. So like I said, lesson learned, and we all learned from that day. I think we all learned in that
Yep,
day. So
I did. I definitely learned. So my apologies. But
no, you're good.
now we're just about at the end. Annette, why don't you just talk a little bit about like what you learned overall from the ride?
So really quick, as we were passing Hanging Mountain, Ariel's all trying to be all talkative. Oh, this is Hanging Mountain, and they call it Hanging Mountain because blah 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 and all this. And I'm just thinking to myself, I don't really give a f about this. What he's telling me, and then he looks at me. He's like, "You don't care, do you?" I'm like, "No." Like,
That's when I knew Annette was over with. That's when I know. And then I pressed by mistake. I was like trying to show her on the Garmin, like, hey, how to look at. She's like, I can't look at the route. It just tells me. I'm like, well, you know, you got all this. Both of y'all have some fancy equipment. I'm gonna tell you that. I got some old stuff. She
That's
got
what
a.
I'm saying. It told me, like I can hear it.
I didn't even get like a full route because he pressed save in the middle of it. So I have like 3 different routes. He's like, oh, my bad. I messed it up.
I was like, I already knew she was sick with it once I told her, hey, look to your left, and it's a hanging rock. She was like, okay, yeah, yep, let's roll. Let's get this thing over with. I'm sick with it, and I was like, hey, you want to go grab something to eat from here? Let's roll. Let's get. I just want this to be over with. I was like, well,
every time they're like, do you need a break? No, let's just keep
let's,
going.
let's roll. That was it. When she pulled out her phone, told me I need to call my dad, I was like, oh, hell to the no. It's a wrap. She was like, she making some personal calls. I be there, start talking in Spanish. I'm like, yo, well, let's wrap this up right here. She was like, how many more miles? I said, 10. Papi, I'll call you back. I was like, oh,
no,
let's
my
get this
dad
thing.
was calling me, and so like he's trying to find my daughter a car. So like Puerto Ricans, dad, they just don't know if you don't answer the phone. That means you're busy, right? He's like calling and calling. I'm like, shit, or sorry, maybe it's an emergency. So I'm like, he's like, oh yeah. So he starts talking to me about the car. I'm like, Papi, I'm in the middle of the road doing a ride. He's like, oh well, call me when you. I'm like, we can talk about Jolene's car later. Like seriously.
Very
Oh my
interesting.
gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we learned, right?
What I definitely learned a lot about the terrain, about the area. Ariel, you recommended that because I am going back. I'm going back right after Texas next week. I found me a partner who wants to go back. She wants to hike while I climb. And so you gave me the suggestion of going up to Pilot Mountain and then driving over to Hanging Mountain. So I can do that a couple of times and maybe even ride over and have her, Sherpa. And then I don't do the ride back because that's solo. But she likes to hike. So it seemed like a perfect area for people that like to hike. So we'll be doing that quite often until I can get to the top and feel a little bit more confident with it. I don't think it'll ever be anything that I don't ever say is hard, but I would like to mentally feel stronger. And so that would be my goal. And of course, to update so many things that I needed to do on my bike, which is not half of the stuff I've already done myself. Ariel, for you, is there anything that you would incorporate differently, especially dealing with us for this ride?
So I learned, I just started coaching and trying to understand, so I first started coaching, and the reason why I started coaching wasn't just to build a clientele, make money. I started coaching so I can learn when my own coach tells me, hey, I need you to do threshold, I need you to do interval. I didn't want to just be a robot of just put the quarter in the slot machine and you do, but I wanted to understand why am I doing a training, and then the ability to then learn that and then teach others. So that's kind of one of the things. So what I learned out of this Pilot Mountain hopping, I think what I learned is how to be patient and then realize that women are freaking awesome. And the reason why I say that is because you guys can deal with life and different things, but when you put your mind to something, you guys get it done, and that's, that's kudos to both of you guys, because a lot of other women shied away. Like, I know people that when I'd be like, hey, let's go for a ride on a weekly basis, or on a weekend, I'd be like, hey, let's go to Pilot Mountain, let's go do a 50 mile or 6 mile. People shy away from me. And my thing is that I'm not here. If I tell you I'm going to ride with you, I don't have to prove who that I'm the man in training. Training, it's a preparation, it's a mindset, but everything falls in place at the race course, right? So I can give you all KOMs. I can be the king of the mountain. I can be top 5, top 7, run a sub 6, all that good stuff. That doesn't matter till I get to the race. So what I learned is how to be patient when people wanting to learn. I learned there's things from my bike that I learned that I still have to work on my road bike, cycling, climbing. There's still like my shoes. I had pair of new stiff shoes that I was trying to break in. Not the best ideal. Um, I didn't take as much nutrition I should, even though I didn't feel like I was, exerted. I still should have maintained my nutrition, because I have in my Garmin when it tells me when to eat and when to drink. So I could have did better that. So I learned a lot, not only about myself, about you two ladies, life. So all around, it was a great experience. And then I get to deal with a group of women that belong to Varlo. That was just a bonus. I can do it with one. The Bible says where there's one or two or more, I'm in your presence, right? So it was just 3 of us, right? So it still felt family like business. So that's kind of what I learned.
Annette, anything you want to add to what you learned?
Um, one of the biggest things, I guess, is to stop saying like, "Oh, I'm not a climber. I'm not a good cyclist," because that's always like the biggest 2 things that I always say. And like, I just need to stop doubting myself as far as my cycling ability. Like, I'm not the greatest, but I've improved, and I just need to like have more confidence in myself, and stop saying like, oh, you're not a strong cyclist, or you're not a strong climber, because after this weekend, we both did some amazing stuff, and just happy and very happy that like Ariel came out with us, that he shared all his knowledge, that he was patient with us, because it was like me and you were both talking like, oh Lord, we got David Goggins' cousin out here, like he about to be like acting crazy, and like we didn't really know what to expect. And it's kind of like, you're such a great athlete that people could be intimidated by like, oh, I don't really want to train with him because like he's gonna be on pen, and we don't want to be on pen. We're trying to just make it through. So that helped to see you like kind of human too. Not that you're not human, but it's like you're such a great elite athlete that we're like, oh, we're not going to be able to ride with him. And you like like you said, it was a training day to not show that you were to kind of just stay with us. So I think that was great, for both of us.
Yeah, I was definitely grateful, because I was prepared to get yelled at, because I knew I was showing up with a couple of things that I was still working through. And then when it didn't happen, I was like, huh. So Ariel, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. Annette, thank you for traveling to ride with me and run with me the next day.
Yes.
And for us to just think about what we learned and what we're going to do next time. Annette, I'll ask you like I did the last time, will you be back? Is Pilot Mountain and Hanging Mountain something that you think you want to attempt again?
I will. Like I said, I'm not going to be intimidated anymore. Negative thoughts will always be there, but now I'm just going to tackle it and try to just be grateful and thankful that we are actually able to do this kind of stuff. So,
yep, same. I'll be back, because now I have the baseline, and thankful that Ariel showed us where we needed to go. So when you're there, you let us know, but we'll probably be back several times. I know I'll be back because I just got somebody to volunteer to go back with me. So I'm definitely grateful. So with that, I will say I have completed, thanks to you all, the second podcast. Thank you.
I've been on both.
Woo! Thank you to my guests. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge and being vulnerable enough to share your why. And we look forward to following both of your journeys for the rest of the year.
Thank you. Love you.
Bye. Thanks so much.